Live from the Opera House, it's Storytime with your host, Ben Whiting.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Live from the City Opera House, it's Storytime. I'm your host, Ben Whiting, and on this show every week, we have a great story read by a special guest, and then have a fun activity you can participate in right from home. I'm going to tell you the supplies you need for today's activity in a little bit, but if you would like to look up the supplies for future activities on future episodes, visit us online or on social media where you can download activity sheets with all the supplies you'll need for every activity, past, present, and future. Now, we all know that when we have friends who help us out, it's important to thank them. And we want to thank some friends who've made this show possible. Newton's Road, Tattle, Traverse City Area Public Schools, the City Opera House, and our series underwriting sponsor, Bell Tire. Thank you so much for your support and contributions. This show would not be possible without you. And now, for today's book. Have you ever stood outside at night and looked up at the night sky? Maybe you were looking at a full moon, or looking at all the stars and trying to find a particular constellation like Orion's Belt or the Big Dipper. In northern Michigan, we can actually see what's called the Northern Lights, as well as the North Star. And if you look outside this weekend, you'll be able to see Jupiter as well as Saturn. But when you're on the ground looking at the sky, do you ever wonder what it would look like if you were in the sky looking down? Well, that brings us to today's book, Mission to Space. And the hero of today's book knows all too well what the view from space looks like, as well as how to train for spaceflight. Now, for those of us who are still on the ground, for now, today's activity is going to be about learning the different phases of the moon. The reason the moon has different phases is because while the moon is circling around the Earth and moon are circling around the sun. Now, the supplies you'll need for today's activity include 2 clear plastic cups, a permanent marker, yellow construction paper cut into a circle about 1 inch in diameter, black construction paper, as well as glue, tape, and a ruler. Now, if you don't have these supplies readily available, that's okay. Go ahead and watch the rest of the episode, and when you have the supplies, you can watch the episode again on demand. And now for today's special guest. I could not be more excited because today we have Captain Jerry Linenger. He was a captain in the U.S. Navy Medical Corps, but he was also a former astronaut. That's right, he flew on one of NASA's space shuttle and did research on the space station Mir. And I couldn't be more excited to have him read today's book for us. So, with that, Captain Linenger, take it away.
Hello, everybody. I am Astronaut Jerry Linenger, and it is great to be with you. I have the opportunity to read a great story, Mission to Space by fellow astronaut John Herrington today. You might already know me, some of you guys, and I shouldn't say this probably, but I'm kind of famous from elementary school, and you might know about me. I was in a school called Deerfield Elementary in East Point, Michigan, and I was in kindergarten, and I was the worst student ever at that school, and maybe kindergarten ever in the world. And I just couldn't sit still. We'd be in there and we'd be doing A, B, C, D, E, F, and I got so tired of hearing the alphabet. I had older brothers and sisters. I was already reading a book, Dick and Jane, and they had a dog named Spot. And all we did is keep repeating the alphabet, and then we kept counting to 10. And I could already count to like 222, because that's my favorite number, 22. And so I was so bored that I'd sneak a book when the teacher was talking, and I'd sit in the corner and just start looking at the pictures all the time. And the teacher didn't like that. And then the only thing I liked in kindergarten was recess. I'd go out and play on the monkey bars and the slide and everything else. And maybe some of you guys are like that. You just don't like sitting still. And we also, on rainy days, got to play with these big building blocks. And I loved that until a big kid named Emmanuel Finney, I still remember his name, Emmanuel Finney, pushed me away and said, "These are my building blocks. You can't play." Well, I met Emmanuel outside behind the school one day. My brother and I used to play football all the time, so I tackled him into a puddle, took some mud, smashed it on his head, and after that, Emmanuel Finney left me alone. Unfortunately, that got me in a little trouble. My mom had to go to the kindergarten teacher And the principal and the teacher, they're real serious, and they said, Mrs. Linenger, we think your son Jerry, we've never had to do this before, but we think he needs to repeat kindergarten. He is trouble. And my mom said, I don't know, he seems pretty normal to me. I've got, an older son and a couple sisters, and they seem to do fine. Can't you just let him go to first grade at least? And I went to first grade. Teacher there understood me. She let me go in the corner, and I could just grab books all I wanted. If I was getting bored, and I'd read books, look at pictures, and that's what got me through school. So ever since first grade, even in kindergarten, I loved books. And to me, book is kind of an adventure. You can kind of escape when you're getting bored. You just start reading a book. And this is a good one, Mission to Space, John Herrington. Now, I'm kind of a little different, and when I read a book, I never read it from the beginning to the end, because to me, books are just fun. And sometimes, right now, as a matter of fact, at home, I'm reading a kind of serious book on genetics, but alongside that, I'm reading a book about Navy SEALs, and alongside that, I'm reading a book on motivation. So when I go into the room, whatever mood I'm in, I kind of pick out the book I like. So today, I'm in the mood to talk about space, and we're going to talk about John Herrington. And I'm going to show you how I usually read a book. I usually read it backwards. I start at the end all the time, unless it's a mystery book. I start at the end and I say, okay, what happened? And in this book at the end it says, mission accomplished. We have successfully landed back on Earth. Oh, so now I can just sigh of relief. I don't have to worry. I know he's going to make it to the end. And so I'm kind of glad I read that. So again, I'm at the end of the book. And then I kind of work my way backwards. And I do it kind of quickly at first. And the way I would normally read a book, I'd go like this, and I'd look at all the pictures. Ah, he's doing a spacewalk. Ah, he's training for space. Ah, that's him. Ah, that's when he was a boy. Oh, that's what this book's going to be about. That's how I do it. Then I kind of have a framework in my mind. I know where this book is going to go. It kind of builds a bookshelf for me. And then I put all the information of the pages on the proper shelf. And when I'm done, I usually kind of close my eyes and say, okay, do I understand that bookshelf? Can I remember something? What's the one kind of good fact I can take away from this? So that's the way I like reading. That's the way I read in elementary school. That's the way I teach my kids to read when they go to college. Get a book, skim it, read the conclusion maybe, look at the beginning, read a little bit of that, and kind of get a framework in your mind of where this is going to go. And so let's read this book a little different than anyone else does. We're going to read it backwards. So again, mission accomplished. We have successfully landed back on Earth, John Herrington says. And then he goes to the last page. An astronaut's helmet has a special visor. It protects our eyes from the bright light of the sun. And if you look at that picture close, it's a gold visor. It's actually made out of gold, and it's pretty darn cool. I've written a couple books myself, and I'm going to show you a picture of me doing a spacewalk on the cover of my book. And sure enough, I got a gold visor down. When I'd go by, if I was looking up at the moon and I didn't pull that visor down, I would just get blinded. So you always wear that gold visor. We are 220 miles above the Earth. That's high. Our helmets, suits, and gloves protect us from extreme cold and heat. So when you're going around the Earth, you're in the bright sun, like I told you, and you better have your visor down if you're doing a spacewalk. But when you get on the darker side of the Earth, where the sun is blocked by the Earth itself, it just gets bitter cold. And so if you're out there spacewalking in the vacuum of space, you have to have something to protect you from that bitter cold of space. Now, it is time to do a spacewalk. We knew that because we read ahead. I am upside down. Am I upside down or right side up? And that's really true. When you're in space, man, you can just float. If we were all in space right now, you wouldn't be listening to me. You'd be like me in kindergarten. You'd be just goofing off and having fun because we'd be doing somersaults. You know, when I was up there, the space shuttle showed up, and Jean-Francois Clairvoy, French guy, he got in some foot loops, and he took me and said, I want to do an experiment on you, Jerry. And he started spinning me, and I did a somersault, and I did another one. I did like 200 somersaults. Didn't get dizzy, felt fine. I could fly. I could be up on the ceiling. We could be upside down reading this book. It is a blast in space. So he's having fun in that spacewalk, no doubt about it. And here, someone helps him out. Astronaut Don Pettit helps me with my EMU, Extravehicular Mobility Unit, suit, which is really, we just call it a space suit, right? And that's the suit you wear when you go outside the space station and do those spacewalks. Look, my eagle feather and flute float in space. Well, I happen to know John, and John is a Chickasaw Nation Native American, and so he took up with him a couple things that were special to him and to his heritage. And I did the same. I'm a Slovene, and I took up some stuff from Slovenia. I took up stuff from different parts of the world, for example, that I had experience with. The other kind of cool thing, when I was in space on a Russian space station for 5 months, they sent up a little package to me, kind of to cheer me up and psychological support, just to make sure, I know people are thinking about me down there on the Earth. And in there, I had a hockey puck. I'm a big hockey fan, signed by Stevie Yzerman, Detroit Red Wings. It came floating out of the box. I had a hat, University of Michigan, signed by a guy named Bo Schembechler. He was a coach at University of Michigan. I put that on my head, spun my hockey puck. So they do stuff like that, but in his case, he took up an eagle feather. The International Space Station will be our home for the next 2 weeks. So he was going to go up there for 2 weeks on that mission. I went up in space, and I was on a space station they made before the International Space Station called Space Station Mir. It was a Russian space station, and I was there for about 5 months. 5 months in space, floating above the planet. It was fantastic. You guys would love it. And here to start it off, the rocket ignites with a great shudder, and we blast off into orbit around the Earth. And you got to get going about 17,500 miles an hour. And you think your dad drives fast in the car. Trust me, 17,500 miles an hour is fast. When I go across the United States, I'd say, oh, there's my relatives in Los Angeles. Ah, it looks like they're skiing in Salt Lake City. Ah, hi, people in Chicago. Hi, Grandma. Ah, there's my hometown in Detroit. You could go across the country about that fast. It's incredible how fast these rockets go. And then he says the people came from miles around to sing, dance, and celebrate. And we have to go back a page to remember what that's all about. But that's because he is the first person, Native American, to ever go into space. And he was from the Chickasaw Nation. And the governor of the Chickasaw Nation, Bill Anawatubi, and the Lieutenant Governor Keel, Jefferson Keel, I think he's from Oklahoma, if I remember right, presented a Chickasaw blanket to NASA. So it was a kind of a big deal that the Native American first one into space. By the way, I also, again, I'm from this little place in Slovenia, and sure enough, they took my book, and they made my book, and this is it in Slovene, Pisma iz Vizvoli. That's how you say that in Slovenian language. But they put a book together, took my old book, and in there they made it a little more personal. And there, for example, is a picture of my son Johnny playing hockey. Oh, this is cool too. Now you got me going. This is my crewmate and myself. But this is me when I had a birthday. They brought up a birthday cake and we inflated it. So it's an inflatable birthday cake. I had a birthday in space. While we waited in the shuttle, it was a very important celebration happening at the Rocket Garden at the Kennedy Space Center. And that's where we launched from, down in Florida. We trained Johnson Space Center in Houston. So it's fun being an astronaut, and to get between the two, we fly jets, T-38s, to go back and forth, and that's a lot of fun too. So here, soon I was ready to fly to the International Space Station with my fellow astronauts, and they're going out there, they're gonna get into that van, it drives you out to the launch pad, and you get at the base of the launch pad, you look up and you go, wow, that thing's a beast. The space shuttle was just huge. And he says it takes a lot of hard work to do something well, and that's definitely true. And there he is. I trained in a pool called the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory. It's just this big, deep swimming pool. And in my case, I got to do the spacewalk, and in my case, it was in Russia, and you're about 30 feet underwater, and they have a mock-up, basically a look-alike of what's going to be in space. And I would practice keeping myself attached, using my tethers, moving along, and putting together this space station. And he did the same thing on the International Space Station. And I trained in a virtual reality laboratory. Now we have that. I'll tell you, back then, that was leading edge science, to put on those masks and to feel like you're in space. And I could do my whole spacewalk in virtual reality and just rehearse it over and over again. It's almost like that A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And so maybe I did learn something in kindergarten after all, because I had to keep repeating that and keep doing the spacewalk over and over and over until it became automatic. Flying in space takes a lot of training, and that's true. I was down at the Johnson Space Center. I got lucky. I actually arrived there and flew in space about 2 years later, and that was a record for any astronaut ever. And I think that's to this day. But most astronauts take about 4 or 5 years, sometimes 10 years, to get ready for the first space flight. And here he is. I'm Commander John B. Herrington, and I am Chickasaw. And again, that's good. You should be proud of your background. And he says, when I was a little boy, I liked to shoot rockets with my dad and tell my older brother, his older brother and him, they'd shoot these little toy rockets, and those are fun. Be careful doing that, though, because they really take off fast. And then they do the old countdown, 10, 9, 8. I'll tell you what, when you're sitting in a rocket, and I'm sitting in there and I'm laying back, and all my crewmates are there, and we give each other a thumbs up, and you close and lock visor, you initiate oxygen flow, hear everyone breathing, and then over the headset you hear that 10, 9, 8, and your heart starts doing this. And then 3, 2, and the rocket comes alive and starts shuddering. 1, 0, boom, you blast off into space, and it is wild. You're being thrown around, violent, chaotic. It is a blast. You guys would love it. And that countdown just makes it even that much more dramatic. 3, 2, 1, boom, and you take off. And at the beginning, he dedicates a book. What does he say? To my dad, and for making the world of flight possible for a young, adventurous boy. So it looks like his dad taught him how to fly out there, probably in Oklahoma. So that's a great book by John Herrington, Mission to Space. So anyway, it's been great reading this great book with you, taking you to space. You guys got to make me a promise. If any of you get inspired and want to be an astronaut someday, I want to come to your launch. So remember my name. It's Jerry Linenger. You look me up and you invite me to your launch, and I'll be there counting the 10, 9, 8 for you and watching you blast off maybe to Mars. How awesome would that be? So it's been great being with you guys. Study hard, work hard, do all the things that John just talked about in that book, and someday you'll be reaching, far beyond the stars. And just in the near term, have fun with the moon project that you have going. That's going to be a lot of fun, and that follows right after this. If you get bored in anything you're doing, remember, just go in the corner, find a book, sit back, leave the planet, and use your imagination. And when you get done with that book, I'll tell you, the last thing you should always do is just close your eyes and say, okay, I can picture myself doing that. I can do anything if I set my mind to it. So again, good being with you guys. Jerry Linenger, out.
Thank you so much, Captain Linenger, for that amazing reading and all that wonderful information. I don't know about everyone watching, but I know I want to be an astronaut now. But it's time to take what we heard and put it into action. And to do that, we have Miss Sara Bageris, a teacher from Central Grade School. She's here with her family to walk us through today's activity. Miss Bageris, how about you get us started?
Hi, welcome. I'm Sara Bageris. I have been a teacher at Central Grade for the last 9 years, and this is my daughter Alexa, who is 13 at West Middle School. We're here today to show you a fun moon activity that you can do at home. And Alexa, can you tell us what you're going to need today?
You're going to need 2 clear plastic cups, a glue stick, cut out labels of the phases of the moon, a black Sharpie marker, and a piece of black construction paper with a circle of yellow construction paper.
Super. And just for time's sake, we did a little bit of work ahead of time. You're going to need a small yellow circle in order to fit on the cup. And what I think is most helpful is to take the black cup and stick it in. Can you put the paper inside? Stick it inside the cup. And then around your first yellow dot, if you can draw a circle around your first yellow dot. And then if you place your fingers front and back and then move it. Yep, and then trace that. That way you have enough space, and then you're going to grab it in the middle of these two circles and move your dot and trace those. So now you should have 4 moons, your new moon, full moon, last quarter, and first quarter. And then we're going to fill in the in-betweens with the waxing and waning crescent and waxing and waning gibbous moons. And while she's doing that, we thought it was really helpful to just have some a map or a diagram of what the moon's phases look like so we could kind of follow along with it. And so we started with the new moon that we needed to color in black. So if you want to go ahead and color the first one in black, and then label that the new moon. And then you're going to you're going to rotate that inside cup. That's going to show us the phases of the moon. And just that far right side is going to be yellow still. And again, you can do the waxing crescent. And go through each one of those. And then the next one, just the side of the moon will be showing. That is the first quarter moon. There you go. So far we've done the new moon, and we're just putting the labels underneath. Again, you could write those out. We just printed them on the computer. The new moon, where no sun is shining through on the moon, and then it gets just a little bit of light there. And then to the first quarter, it's about half full. And then the next one, it's getting larger. It becomes the waxing gibbous. And then we have the fifth one is the full moon. That beautiful full moon. And if you get a chance, we were just discussing what a great time this is in the fall to be able to get out and see the sun or the moon rising in the evening. It rises pretty early and gets dark so early, so it's great to get out there and check out the moon in all its different phases. And then our next one would be the waning gibbous. And then the next one is the last quarter, where again, half of the moon is showing. There we go. And should bring us back to the waxing crescent, where again, it's just a teeny tiny little sliver in the moon that you can see, all depending on where the sun and the earth and the moon are in rotation. Thank you, friends, for coming and joining our little moon phase activity.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bageris, for walking us through today's activity. We also want to thank Captain Linenger one more time for that great reading, as well as our sponsors. But most of all, we want to thank you for tuning in. This show would not be possible without your viewership. But we're not done yet, because we want to see how you did with today's activity. So take a photo of your creation and send it to us along with your name, age, and a description of your project, and email that to info@tcaps.net. Be sure to get your parents' permission, and one review will be selected to receive a free copy of today's book signed by our guest reader, as well as yours truly. If you enjoy this show, please feel free to tune in every week, and you can see all of our past and future episodes at tcaps247.com. That's tcaps247.com. My name is Ben Whiting, and until next time, stay safe, have fun, and keep learning.